I never expected the new cleaner would bring unbelievable peace to the Millionaire's twins. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The air felt thick, heavy with an unnameable tension as I watched my little brother Lucas tremble in the corner, his eyes wide and glassy. My heart pounded like a drum. I pulled him closer, feeling his fragile body shake against mine. Our lives had been a carousel of chaos since our mom took that job. Our father's absence stung like a fresh wound, and the silence echoed in our opulent house. Beautiful rooms, cold and empty. But then, she arrived. Elena. The new cleaner. She walked in with an almost ethereal grace, her long, dark curls cascading around her shoulders. A warm smile that set the world on fire, illuminating even the darkest corners of our lives. Something about her felt different. Was it the way she tied her apron with such determination? Or how she hummed softly, weaving a melody into the air? I remember how she knelt beside us, her eyes locking onto ours. "You're safe here," she whispered, each word making my heart settle just a bit. But there was a mystery behind her gaze, an unspoken story hidden beneath her sweet demeanor. Did she know our pain? What secrets lingered in that gentle smile? The more she cleaned, the more peace seeped into our lives. Our laughter began to return, timid at first but growing louder and more vibrant. I couldn't explain it. Lucas would snuggle against her side while she dusted, whispering his fears, and she would listen with patience, her expression turning serious for just a moment like she understood. But then, the shadows began to swirl around us. Whispers reached my ears, fragments of conversations about Elena. "She's not what she seems," they said. "Something's off." My gut twisted. My heartbeat quickened. I had to know more. Who was she really? One evening, I watched her from the hallway as she meticulously straightened a class photo of us, the only image of our family united. Her fingers brushed the frame, lingering as if reminiscing. Why? My stomach dropped with unease, and an unsettling chill crawled up my spine. As days went by, I felt Elena's presence draw me in like a moth to a flame. I craved to understand the depths of her character, a curiosity that burned. Yet, I sensed that each question came at a cost. Each smile she gave lit up my world, while simultaneously casting longer shadows. It all culminated one night. The storm raged outside, loud and feral. The lights flickered, and I found myself alone with her in the vast living room. She turned to me, and for a split second, I saw something flicker in those kind eyes, a warning. A plea. "Sometimes, to find peace, we have to confront our past," she said, her voice threading through the chaos outside. I could only stare, my breath caught in my throat, a million questions swirling angrily in my mind. What was she hiding? What past? Did she know my family's secrets? But the power went out, plunging us into darkness. Silence enveloped us like a suffocating blanket. I trembled, eyes straining to adjust. What came next would change everything. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The darkness pressed against us, saturating the vast living room with an almost tangible fear. My heart raced, each beat amplifying the enclosing silence until it felt like the walls themselves were closing in. I squinted, trying to find Elena, but all I could hear was the pattering of rain against the windows, intermingling with distant thunder rolling across the sky. "Lucas?" I croaked, the sound barely rising above the storm. Panic surged as I realized I had to keep him close. "Where are you?" But Elena's presence felt strangely calming amidst the chaos, so I turned my focus back to her. Elena? I called, my voice trembling. What do you mean by confronting our past? A soft rustle caught my attention. A fleeting shadow moved against the wall, and I felt her behind me, the warmth of her body close enough to shield me from the cold embrace of the night. It's what we all must do, sweet girl, she murmured, her voice soothing yet layered with unspoken dread. Suddenly, a flash of lightning illuminated the room, casting eerie shadows in the corners, and in that moment, I saw tears glistening in her eyes, an expression so vulnerable, it stole my breath away. This was the first time I felt the weight of her truth pressing against me. She turned from the window and knelt beside me, a moment of intimacy that was both terrifying and exhilarating. There are things in life we carry, burdens we shouldn't have to bear alone, she continued, her voice almost breaking, revealing a hint of the storms that brewed within her. But knowing we're not alone can lighten that load. Is that why you're here? I asked, uncertainty weaving itself into my words. To help us? Yes, she whispered, but there was something more. The conviction in her tone was laced with an undercurrent of sorrow and aching realization that this peace we found might not belong to her. But sometimes the people who show us the most kindness are those who have experienced pain themselves. Just then, I heard Lucas's quiet sobs rising from the shadows. A fresh wave of vertigo washed over me. I held his trembling hand tightly as the storm outside roared with renewed ferocity. With every flash of lightning, I felt the walls of our lives constricting, and the weight of our unfinished stories pressed upon my chest. Elena's gaze darted toward the window, and for a brief instant, I could see fear mirrored in her eyes. It was alarming, a flicker of anxiety that shattered the calm she worked so hard to create. We need to stay together, she urged, her voice steady now, like a lifebuoy in turbulence. Whatever is out there, it won't touch us if we stand united. Lucas looked up at her, his wide eyes reflecting both fear and hope. Will you stay with us? The sincerity in his question lit a flicker of determination within me. She was not just the cleaner, she had become something more, a beacon of hope. Please, Elena. You don't have to go anywhere. Her breath hitched, and there was a flicker of something in her expression that made my heart ache. She smiled softly, brushing her fingers through Lucas's hair before looking back at me. Okay. I'll stay for now. But just then, an unexpected noise sent a shiver down my spine, a loud banging at the door. It echoed through the stillness like the hammer of fate falling against our fragile peace. The three of us froze, a collective gasp escaping my lips. Elena stood abruptly, her expression shifting into one of determination as she glanced back toward us. Stay here. I'll check it out. But I started, but she was already moving, her silhouette becoming indistinguishable against the darkness as she approached the door. Trust me, she called back, the authority in her voice demanding my compliance despite the knot of fear tightening in my stomach. As Lucas huddled closer to me, I felt a wave of uncertainty crash over us. I wanted to trust her. I wanted to believe that she could shield us from whatever was lurking at our doorstep. But deep down, I feared that Elena, with all her enticing warmth, was hiding a darkness of her own. The banging on the door intensified and urgent. Demand to be heard. I closed my eyes, sending out a silent prayer for answers. What awaited us outside? Would the sanctuary she'd built for us withstand the violent tides of our reality? And then, just as the shadows encroached upon the last remnants of our peace, I heard Elena's voice again. But this time, it shattered every illusion of safety I had. No. You can't be here. You promised it was over. A shockwave surged through me, the weight of her words crumbling the foundation of my trust. Everything I thought I knew unraveled. Who was at that door, and what had she truly meant by over? The moment hung in the air, electrified by fear and confusion. The unyielding storm outside morphed the sizzling tension into something almost suffocating. Lucas clutched onto my arm, his small fingers trembling as they gripped my skin with a vice-like intensity, seeking comfort in our desperate reality. Who is it, Elena? I called, my voice barely above a whisper but doused in urgency. The relentless pounding was like the heartbeat of the storm itself, a wrathful reminder that safety was a mere illusion. I said, "Go away." She shouted again, this time laced with emotion, pain, anger, and an underlying dread that chilled me more than the rain lashing against the window. "You don't belong here anymore." "What is happening?" Lucas whimpered beside me, and I could sense his fear morphing into something tangible, wrapping us both in a shroud of dread. The shadows around us seemed to grow, thick and oppressive, as if they could swallow us whole. That I had thought Elena was our savior. With every smile she gave, I felt a flicker of hope for a glimmering future just beyond the horizon. But now, hearing her raw, anguished pleas aimed at whatever lingered at the doorway, I realized even the brightest stars can have dark voids at their core. The sound of the door creaking open sliced through the air, and in that instant, I held my breath, drawing Lucas closer. Just as the last vestige of calm was swept away, an icy figure stepped into the house, a silhouette framed by the storm. Martha. Elena's voice dipped into an entirely different tone, one that resonated with fear mingling with regret. A moment passed before I discerned the newcomer, a woman with gaunt features and a disheveled countenance that bore the marks of hardship, as if life had weathered her like the tempest outside. Martha's eyes, dark and piercing, locked onto Elena, and I could sense the weight of unresolved history between them, an unspeakable recognition that was both intimate and fraught. "Why do you run?" Martha's voice was raspy, barely rising above the silencing hum of the storm. "You said you'd come back. You can't just leave me like that, Elena." My heart pinched painfully in my chest, the knowledge dawning that this woman carried stories intertwined with Elena's truth. "You know her?" I dared to whisper, a mix of confusion and instinctive protective impulse flooding through me. "Of course," Martha replied, her gaze flicking from me to Lucas, a hint of disdain in her hardened features. "You think she's the savior? She's only taken from me what little I had left. Run away with a guilty conscience, Elena." "Stop," Elena said, her voice trembling now, a fracture breaking through her previously tough exterior. "You don't understand what I had to keep your secrets." Martha interrupted, the harshness of her words slicing through the dim space. "What was it all for? A clean slate? You're still haunted by those you left behind." With every passing moment, I felt as if the ground beneath me was sinking, dragging me into an abyss of lost possibilities. The light I saw in Elena's eyes dimmed, the hope we found in her presence began to shift into something darker, more complex. "Lucas, stay close," I whispered, feeling the icy fingers of fear entwining themselves around us both. I glanced at him, his innocent blue eyes, wide in agitation, searching for understanding in the chaos. "Does she know?" Lucas's small voice interrupted, filled with an innocence that only amplified the weight of the moment. "About what happened to Mom and Dad?" At that, both women turned their attention to him, the air thickening with despair. "What do you mean?" Elena asked, but her voice trembled, a note of panic threading through her earlier resolve. Martha's eyes flared, piercing through the darkness. "You didn't tell her, did you?" She stepped closer, her voice lowering to a conspiratorial hiss. "What good would it do to know?" "Stop!" Elena shouted, stepping forward, grounding herself against the tumultuous atmosphere. "You can't tell them anything. They've been through enough." But her desperate wish for silence felt hollow, echoing against the gnashing winds hurling themselves at our fragile sanctuary. I sensed that deeper shadows stirred, and what was left unspoken loomed like a black cloud ready to pour chaos into our lives. "Martha, just leave," Elena finally pleaded, her armor shattering, revealing the fragile heart I had only glimpsed earlier. "No." Martha shot back. "You can't hide from the past forever. Those kids deserve the truth." In that moment, the door behind Martha creaked wider, inviting an echo from the storm beyond. The gust of wind swirled into our living room, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and impending revelation. Caught in the eye of this emotional tempest, I felt an overwhelming need to shield my brother and reassure him of our safety amid the chaos. Yet, a larger question loomed: what truth could shatter us further? Just as I felt the steady rhythm of our fragile understanding slipping away, a deafening clap of thunder reverberated, a catalyst that sent my heart racing. Mom and Dad didn't die by accident, did they? Lucas's small voice cut through the tempest, raw and unfiltered, piercing the silent tension that cloaked the room. Elena's face went pale, her breath catching in her throat, while Martha just smirked, and with her next words, she relayed a revelation that sent my heart plummeting into the depths. No, and if you want to understand why you were left to face this, then you'd better start listening. And at that moment, the fragile connection we had built around us unraveled, leaving us on the precipice of calamity, as truths both terrible and heartrending threatened to change everything we thought we knew. The storm outside grew fierce, a relentless chaos that seemed to echo the turmoil brewing within our home. Thunder rumbled like the very foundations of our lives being shaken, and I could feel the pressure building, not just from the tempest outside, but from the weight of Martha's revelation hanging heavily in the air. Listen to me. Martha's voice rose, tinged with a scornful edge. For too long, you've lived in a lie. The accident was no accident. Your parents were taken away from you because of decisions they made, the very choices that forced Elena to run. Each word fell like a leaden weight against my heart, but it was Lucas's shocked face that shattered whatever resolve I had left. I had promised him a safe space, a sanctuary from the monsters of our past, and yet here we were, enveloped in the shadows of secrets that threatened to engulf us. I don't want to hear it. I shouted, my voice trembling with the turmoil inside. You're scaring him. I pulled Lucas closer, feeling him lean into me as if seeking refuge from the storm both inside and out. The tears tracking down his cheeks mirrored the rain battering the windows, blurring the line between our reality and the anguish surrounding us. Elena stood frozen, her expression battling between anger and an almost palpable despair. Martha, this isn't the way. You're dragging a storm with you, and it's not just in the skies. Then let them know. Martha's eyes burned with fervor, a fierce desperation mingling with her past regrets. Don't they deserve to know why their entire lives have been disrupted? Why they've had to suffer? Silence won't protect them. Silence has kept them safe, I asserted, even as uncertainty began to gnaw at me. Because each heartbeat urged me to pry open the truth, to understand who was at fault in this convoluted narrative. But did we really want to leaven the scars of our history, the pain that lingered just beneath the surface? We can't just throw words into the wind. Elena exclaimed, her voice rising, almost lost amidst the storm's crescendo. What you're asking of them could shatter everything. They've endured enough. Lucas's fingers intertwined with mine, a small comfort as whispers of fear danced along the edges of his mind. Elena, his timid voice cut through the din, drawing all eyes towards him. With such innocence, he asked the question we were all too afraid to voice. What happened to Mom and Dad? The room grew still, as if the universe itself held its breath, waiting for the answers that were riddled in that opening question. I felt the roots of despair sinking deeper, unwilling to let us escape unscathed. No. Elena cried out, moving toward Lucas. But her strides were heavy with uncertainty, as if the words she feared would eventually rise to her lips. You don't need to know. You have to look forward, not back. Martha laughed, but the sound was brittle, like glass shattering into jagged shards. You think forgetting is living? You think they'll grow and heal in ignorance? That only leads to bitterness and resentment. The moment they lose their way, it will creep back, like a shadow. And what about your bitterness? Hiding your failures behind their pain? I challenged, resistance igniting a flicker of courage within me. Why push this onto them? What does deepening this wound yield? But Martha's gaze was unyielding. Because I care about them. Because they deserve to know who they are, and why they were abandoned. When Elena left, their world shrank into a small place of grief. You don't know Elena's truth, it could be the map they need to find their way out of this darkness. For a heartbeat, I hesitated, teetering on the ledge of this emotional cliff. Then tell them. Tell us. But understand this, Martha, truth can be a double-edged sword. It can protect, but it can also destroy. Elena's expression weighed heavily upon me, a reflection of regret and unresolved tension, though her eyes sparkled with a sliver of gratitude as they met mine. She had struggled endlessly to shield us, bending beneath the burden of what remained unspoken. The room hummed with the energy of unresolved feelings. I scanned the faces around me: Lucas, still bewildered and scared; Martha, angry yet pleading; Elena, brimming with helplessness, yearning for redemption amid this brutal tempest. "Tell us, Elena," I urged softly, daring to breach the fragile silence that had bewitched the room. "We deserve to know. We must know." The storm outside roared angrily, seeming to resonate with my own rising desperation, clashing against the door, rattling the very foundation of our sanctuary. Elena took a step back, her breathing quickening. "I didn't know how to come back. I thought I was sparing you. I tried to protect you from what they had done, to shield you from our family's legacy." "Legacy?" Martha spat, there was contempt in her voice. What a charming word to mask the suffocating truths. "They were not innocents in this, Elena." "Stop!" I interjected, my heart pounding against my ribcage. We were straying into uncertain territory, and I needed to maintain control. What links us doesn't terrify us, it unites us. "So, let us begin." The air grew electric, thick with unspoken feelings. As I turned to Lucas, seeking to reassure him, I placed my hand on his shoulder, squeezing it tightly, determined to push back against the storm of revelations looming on the horizon. But then, unbidden, a new thought manifested, a chilling clarity that gripped my heart, a dawning realization that pulled at my senses. What if the words slipped out like a whisper, barely audible above the howling wind? What if the choice to leave wasn't fueled by fear? What if there was something darker, something we haven't yet grasped? The atmosphere shifted like the very air had been electrified, and as I looked to the others, their faces mirrored the same weighty uncertainty. Just as a new gust of wind rattled the shingles of our roof, the shadows crept ever closer, and I sensed in that moment that the past refused to be ignored, that if I thought the storm outside was raging, it paled in comparison to the tempest of truths we were about to reveal, an upheaval that threatened to tear apart the fragile fabric that held our lives together. And just as my heart braced for the worst, an ominous noise echoed from behind me, a scuttling sound entwined within the storm's fury, signaling that our sanctuary was no longer safe. In the murky intersection of revelation and dread, I felt the tide turn ominously, reality twisted, and I realized that we had only begun to tap into the fathomless depths of our collective grief. A shiver cascaded through me as the darkness began to settle into an unrelenting silence, one that hinted chillingly to the storm yet to come. The air thickened with tension, the storm outside roaring as if it craved to be acknowledged, just like the emotions swirling within our cramped living room. As the howling winds danced with the rain, weaving a wild symphony, I felt an urgency to unravel the chaos that had become our lives. Lucas glanced up at me, his small features reflecting both confusion and fear, and I took a shaky breath, wishing I could shield him from the storm of truths about to be unleashed. "Martha," I said, my voice steadier than I felt, "what if we tried to find the pieces together? There's a darkness in our history that needs light. Let us face it together." For a fleeting moment, a flicker of hope kindled within Martha, as if she recognized this desire for unity amidst wreckage. But it was Elena who took a step forward, bringing a gentle but firm hand to Lucas's shoulder, grounding him as she prepared to counter with a different kind of strength. "What I did leaving you, it wasn't just about my fear, it was about trying to protect you from our family's history, a history stained with betrayal and loss." Her words poured forth, trembling with the weight of her remorse. "Every memory I carried was a blade, and I couldn't bear to inflict that pain on you, not when I had already made the choice to abandon my own life." I swallowed hard, the guilt swirling within me like the storm beyond our walls. But what if understanding our past could transform its grip over us? I asked, each word hanging in the air. What if the truth isn't just a burden, but a bridge? "Even bridges can crumble," Martha muttered bitterly, but her eyes softened. The flicker of defiance was still present, yet it wrestled with something else, perhaps even admiration for the vulnerability in our collective resolve. "It won't crumble," Lucas said suddenly, breaking the charged silence that had draped over us like fog. His voice, quiet yet whispering with the resolve of someone far older, echoed softly, "You're all here, and that means we can face it together. We can be strong. We will be strong." His innocence struck a poignant chord, and I looked around the room. Elena's eyes glistened with unshed tears, and Martha's furrowed brow released some of its tension at Lucas's earnestness. The intensity of the storm outside amplified every feeling within us, setting the stage for a reckoning that we had avoided for far too long. Elena inhaled deeply, hesitation giving way to resolve. "Then let me tell you what I know. It begins with the truth about our family, about your parents, and the legacy that shadows us. When they died, it wasn't just a tragedy, it was a consequence of choices that spiraled beyond control." The somber weight of her words settled over us. "You're our mother. She and your father were mixed up in things that defied our understanding. They were trying to create light, but they were also dabbling in darkness. I was witness to it, and when the decision to leave became my only option, it was one steeped in guilt that consumes me every day." "What choices?" Lucas's voice cut through the heavy silence, innocent yet demanding an answer to a truth so painful it felt nearly impossible to voice. "Your mother was involved in something dangerous. A deal gone wrong. It's complicated. It's everything we thought was a safe haven turned into a battleground. There were choices we made." Elena's voice faltered, prompting Martha to step closer, her resolve hardening. "All because they thought they could escape the very shadows that haunted us. And in their attempts to protect their children from that darkness, they lost everything in their reckless pursuit for safety. That's the part we cannot forget, the choices led them to their demise." A frigid hush enveloped the room, and I dreaded the looming storm of emotions that would inevitably be unleashed. I felt Lucas shudder against me, and I clutched him tighter as realization washed over me. The truth felt both liberating and merciless, peeling back layers of protection to expose raw flesh. "What do you mean lost everything?" Lucas pressed, his words trembling, but firm. I could hear his spirit shining through, but it weighed heavily against the despair rattling in the room. A sharp crack of thunder echoed around us, and Elena hesitated, ruminating over which part of the truth to share. "Your parents didn't just vanish, they made enemies, Lucas. People who were angry when they could no longer control them. They fought back when they shouldn't have, and in doing so, they know." Martha interrupted, glaring at Elena. "They fought back because they knew. They knew they were being hunted because of decisions they made." Lucas ducked his head, his small form shivering as if the tempest outside crept into the very marrow of his bones. "But they still loved us," he whispered, "right?" A heartbeat of silence passed where Martha and Elena shared a look. The grief within their eyes mirrored the weight of the truth revealed. My heart cracked, watching as both women grappled with the messy web of pain and love that enveloped us. Love can't erase choices that destroy lives, yet it's love that ties us together, even amidst the secrets. And then, without warning, a shattering noise erupted from outside as if the storm itself could no longer contain its fury. Branches bowing under the orthodoxy of wind and rain splintered. The sound was a harbinger, a chilling reminder of how fragile our world had become. "Lucas, stay close," I urged, pulling him into me as a rush of adrenaline flooded my system. What we faced inside felt far more terrifying than the raging tempest, yet there was something frighteningly new emerging, a purpose to confront the unknown and an unyielding quest for healing. But as the darkness growled louder and reality twisted harshly in my gut, revelations flickered more than the shadows on the walls. By grasping the truth of our fragmentation, perhaps we might mend what was broken. Until a resonating crash echoed from somewhere within the house, halting our breath and freezing the heartbeats in our chests. The foundation trembled beneath our feet, and a sense of foreboding crept in. Just as we thought we were ready to face the tempest, something beyond our walls, a new threat, perhaps invaded the sanctuary we had fought so hard to create. As we huddled against each other, the fear of what was to come wrapped tightly around us. The storm continued to rage outside, blurring the lines between safety and vulnerability, while uncertainty loomed large. The storm within us was only beginning, and the tides threatened to pull us under. The howling wind outside rattled the windows, but it was the echo of that shattering noise, deep within the core of our home, that struck the greatest fear into our hearts. I could feel Lucas's small frame quaking against me, clutching my shirt like a lifeline as my own pulse raced in a frantic rhythm. The storm was sweeping through our lives at that moment, and we were left with the unbearable weight of revelation, betrayal, and now the fear of physical danger looming beyond our sanctuary. Elena stepped back, her face drained. "I'll check it out," she whispered, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her bravado. But no one moved, we were all frozen in place, the weight of our shared history anchoring us to the spot. "Don't go alone," Martha hissed, fear pouring out of her as she gripped Lucas's other shoulder, trying to bolster her own courage. "What if it's dangerous? I have to see." Elena's gaze darted toward the door, and I could sense her turmoil. She wanted to protect us, yet she was drawn toward the unknown. With a rallying breath, I pushed myself off the couch, heart racing. "We all go. Together." It was a small spark of unity, but it helped soothe the jagged edges of lingering panic. As we stepped cautiously towards the source of the noise, the air thickened with an anticipatory tension. Each creak of the floorboards beneath our feet seemed amplified, a reminder of the fragile nature of our sanctuary. The hallway stretched before us, dark and pregnant with atmosphere, and I felt each heartbeat echoing in my ears. "What if it's something bad?" Lucas whispered, uncertainty weaving itself into his innocent question. "It might be," Martha replied, the edge of pain in her voice resounding eerily against the staccato of rain against the windows. She knelt to Lucas's level, her eyes softening. "But whatever it is, you're not alone. We'll face it together, remember?" For a fleeting moment, Lucas nodded and grasped Martha's hand tightly. The warmth of their connection in the face of dread comforted him, as well as lit a small flame of courage in me. As we approached the staircase leading down to the basement, the echoes of our past reverberated within the confines of my mind. It was akin to navigating through memories wrapped in sorrow, yet illuminated by the faint glow of hope. As we reached the basement door, the wind wailed, almost as if it were warning us. I glanced at Elena, who was fumbling with the handle, but before she could turn it, the door suddenly burst open with a loud bang, and a gust of air flooded our space. Stumbling back collectively, we were met with the sight of someone standing quietly amidst the chaos. A silhouette stood there, drenched but unyielding, the light from our living room flickered over them, revealing the unmistakable figure of a man, frail yet resilient. He wore a battered overcoat, remnants of the storm clinging to him like distant memories. "Miguel?" Elena's voice broke, filled with a mix of disbelief and overwhelming confusion. "Elena." He stepped into the light, his eyes glistening with unspoken stories and burdens carried for far too long, but his gaze softened as he looked past her, at all of us. "I came as soon as I heard." As the world condensed into that moment, the whirling chaos of the storm reduced to his quiet presence, my heart raced with conflicting emotions. Who was he? How did he know to come here? As memories darted through my mind, pieces of long-buried connections began to resurface. He had been a shadow in the periphery of my life, a man intertwined with whispers of the past. "Miguel, what are you doing here?" Elena demanded, her voice thick with emotion. "You shouldn't have come." "I had no choice," he replied, his voice a low rumble, yet tender. "There are secrets regarding your parents, dark ones. They need to be brought into the light before it consumes us all." "I know it's unsettling. Unsettling doesn't even begin to describe it," Martha challenged, stepping forward protectively, her arms crossing over Lucas. "Why now? After all this time?" "Because," he took a measured breath, swallowing emotions thick with regret, "they're coming. They've found you. And if we don't act swiftly, it won't be just your mother's choices that haunt you. It'll be their consequences you'll have to face." Laughter from the storm echoed around us, and I felt a chill ripple down my spine as dread seeped back in, locking hands with hope in a cruel dance of uncertainty. The reality of our lives began shifting once more, teetering on the edge of catastrophe. "Who?" Elena whispered, her voice a thread of desperation woven with resolve. "Who is coming?" "Marauders from the past," he replied, his brow furrowing as he met each of our gazes. People who have waited too long, rekindling their twisted obsession with what your parents buried. And if we don't confront them, this storm will only be the beginning. As his chilling words settled over us, blending seamlessly with the storm raging outside, I knew we had reached a point of no return. We were on the precipice of unveiling deeper truths, but in doing so, we were also drawing the darkness that once haunted our past ever closer. A new tempest brewed on the horizon, and the echoes of our family's history whispered of dangers yet to come. The reassuring bond of togetherness felt tenuous in the face of such an overwhelming threat, and just as I opened my mouth to voice the depth of my fear, I felt Lucas's grip tighten even further as he drew closer. We stood teetering on a chasm, fearful, uncertain, yet strangely connected. The storm within us was ready to release its fury, but so was the storm outside, and it felt as if both conspired to unravel everything we held dear. The walls of our once sturdy home began to feel like fragile paper, barely holding us within their embrace as fear wrapped around us. I exchanged a glance with Martha. Her eyes were wide, reflecting both worry and a flicker of determination. And though Lucas was small, he stood resolute, absorbing the darkening news with a maturity that surprised me. "Miguel," I said, my voice shaking just slightly, "what can we do?" He took a moment to sift through the weight of our collective uncertainty, and as the storm pounded on, it felt as if we were waiting for a crack in the universe to give us a glimmer of hope. "First," he began, lowering his voice, "we prepare. We don't confront shadows without understanding the truth behind them." "Truth?" Elena challenged, her demeanor a mixture of skepticism and curiosity. "What truth? What could possibly justify the chaos our lives have become?" "Your parents made choices," Miguel replied quietly, his jaw tightening, "that entwined your paths with those who are relentless in their pursuit. They buried secrets, leaving trails of despair in their wake. But it's time to excavate those shadows and drag them into the light." "That's not an answer," she snapped, her frustration palpable. "I need something we can hold on to." "Sometimes, truth is a tempest all its own," Miguel stated, meeting her gaze fiercely. "A truth that shatters illusions and demands that you choose, to fight or to be consumed." The air hung heavy with his declaration as we exchanged glances, all struggling with our emotions. I felt a small flicker of resentment bubbling up toward what felt like being cast adrift in a storm of our own making. But then Lucas squeezed my hand again, grounding me amidst the turmoil. "We can do it together," he whispered, the innocence of his belief temporarily softening the edges of my fear. "Together," I echoed, an involuntary smile creeping onto my face. I watched Martha's shoulders lift a fraction, her resolve slipping into place beside me as if Lucas's small voice were tying us closer than before. As time crept on, the storm raged outside, and Miguel detailed the steps we needed to take. I noticed a sense of purpose resonating among us, a small glimmer flaring in the darkness. We focused on gathering what we might need: old photos, documents barely remembered, anything we could piece together regarding our family's secrets. Things took a shift as memories unspooled, propelling us deeper into our past while still connecting us to the future. Elena recalled how their once vibrant relationship had withered amid unspoken truths. The way Mom used to talk about our family like they were gods, or demons, how we should be grateful they were in our lives. "That's a warning, not a reverie," Miguel interjected, his eyes locked onto each of us. "Time to decide what kind of legacy you want to inherit." In that moment, I caught traces of a unified strength weaving between us. It was palpable, filling my lungs with hope as it contrasted starkly with the storm outside. Armed with pen and paper, we began to recount our history, mapping out connections, both hidden and forgotten, that could lead us toward the truth Miguel insisted we face. Hours dragged on, and soon we were scattered across the living room, each of us lost in thoughts spurred by dusty memories and the echoes of laughter long abandoned. Even the storm seemed to quiet at times, turning into the soft patter of rain, almost as if it waited alongside us, allowing a fragile layer of peace to rest upon the map of our lives charted out before us. Then it happened. A sudden noise resonated from the basement, a crash echoing through the silence we had carefully cultivated. We froze, hearts pounding, eyes wide, and once again the storm returned with ferocity. "Miguel?" I whispered, panic flooding my veins. What was that? Lucas clutched my arm tighter as Martha's protective instincts kicked in, pulling him against her side. "What if it stay here?" Miguel said, his voice low and commanding. "I'll check." "Are you insane? You can't go down there alone." Elena cried, the fear boiling over. My pulse quickened as I instinctively stepped forward. "No. We're stronger together. We all go." As we collectively took a step toward the basement door, the air hummed with tension and uncertainty. Miguel swallowed hard, but nodded, leading the way as we descended the stairs slowly, our breaths mingling with trepidation. At the bottom, the small beam of light illuminated debris scattered across the cold floor but nothing outlined in darkness. There was only an eerie silence that settled in our bones and whispered secrets through the shadows, but then, in the dim flicker, something shimmered, a glint that caught my eye under the remnants. Without thinking, I lunged forward, heart pounding as I bent down to uncover the glimmering object. My fingers brushed against smooth glass, and as I pulled it into the light, the truth exploded around us with unbearable weight that it was an old, cracked picture frame, a family portrait I had never seen before. In it, the faces looked eerily familiar, the shadows of our past manifesting before us with an immediate urgency. I gasped, my eyes widening as realization washed over me like the cold rain slapping the windows above. "Elena," I breathed, this is not our family." The others gathered closer as the image settled in our midst, revealing people who bore uncanny resemblances to us, yet their expressions were cloaked in sorrow and something darker. A connection suddenly sparked, a secret hidden for years, an unresolved story finally revealing itself amid the chaos headlines we had yet to read. In the moment of recognition, my heart raced with exhilaration and dread. Who were they? Why had we been kept from this truth? The storm outside mirrored our fears, rumbling powerfully. It felt like the precise moment before an unthinkable revelation, and as our past came crashing into our present, the dark forces that had lain dormant in the crevices of our lives stirred restlessly. A new storm was brewing at the horizon, and we were still unprepared for the history that was about to reveal itself when we had only begun to comprehend that. In our shared gaze of shock mingled with determination, I realized we no longer stood on the precipice. We had fallen into the depths of a mystery that whispered its way into our hearts. Unraveling together was no longer a choice we could make. It was now the only way forward. As the gravity of the moment settled like the dust around us, breaths were held in silence, punctuated only by the distant sound of thunder rattling the rafters. The picture frame trembled in my grasp as questions swirled like leaves caught in an autumn storm. All uncertainty felt eclipsed by the realization that what we were staring at was tethered tightly to the heart of our existence. "What is this?" I whispered, more to myself than to the others. I gazed at the photograph, consumed by those unfamiliar yet hauntingly familiar faces that begged for recognition, for context. "Here, let me see." Elena reached forward with trembling fingers, the image reflecting in her watery eyes. "They look like us. But how? Why don't we know them?" A sharp pang of anxiety pulsed through my chest, laced with an unforeseen warmth, deep down a nagging sense of familiarity. This was no mere photograph, it felt like a thread we hadn't known existed, linking our lives with those who had also navigated shadows and storms. "I don't like this," Lucas murmured, clutching tightly to Martha, who remained steady beside him, her taut expression softening into curiosity. "None of us do, but maybe that's the point," Miguel interjected, his analytical mind racing with possibilities. "We need to uncover this. There's a reason it was hidden away, and I bet it isn't just to protect us." The flickering light above the basement stairs cast eerie shadows over our faces, flickering like our resolve. I felt a swell of emotions surging within me, fear and hope coalescing, creating an ache I could no longer ignore. How could they keep this from us? Elena continued, her voice lowering to a near whisper, "Were we not worthy of knowing? This may be about more than just us," I said softly, trying to summon my resolve. "There are lies entwined in our family history that have kept us shackled in silence. Maybe they wanted to shield us," Martha offered, her voice gentle, a lilt of understanding. Perhaps they thought we were safer in ignorance. Or maybe they felt guilty, said Miguel, eyes narrowing as if piecing together a puzzle. Guilt can warp love into something dark, something that keeps the truth buried deep. We must find out who they were and why they were hidden. As I braced myself against the wall, the sudden strain of the past weighed so heavily on my shoulders that the air around us felt dense. The storm outside slashed at the windows, augmenting our sense of urgency. "Let us take this upstairs," Miguel suggested, his voice steady though the flicker of fear lingered in his eyes. "Having this alone isn't enough, we need to talk about what we know, what we need to find out." We hurried back upstairs, the image held closely, as though it were a talisman offering both protection and peril. Once we reclaimed our place in the living room, I placed the picture frame on the table, surrounding it with our scattered memories, the fragments of our lives still raw with emotional charge. "All right," I breathed, "let us think about what we know. We need to connect the dots." "I can contact Aunt Rosa," Elena suggested, her mind racing with possibilities. "She's always had those family documents, hasn't she? Maybe she knows anything to connect us to this." "That's a good start," I said, encouraged by her drive. "And after that, we can visit the old family estate, see what we can find there. This could lead us to everything, the truth, the whole story," Lucas whispered, optimism unfurling in the tension that surrounded us. Hope began to flicker within our circle, and for a moment, it felt like the storm inside the house might fade as resolve bolstered our spirits. This was more than a search for truth, it was about reclaiming the narrative that had slipped through our fingers too many times, but as our spirits began to rise, a loud bang shattered the quickening silence, causing us all to stiffen. The front door swung open violently, and a figure stood silhouetted against the tempest outside. "Hello." A deep voice called, resonating through the air thick with suspense. We rushed to the entryway, and a flash of recognition surged within me. It was a man I had never met but who carried a presence that felt hauntingly familiar. A sense of dread curled in my stomach. The storm might have granted us a moment of clarity, but this arrival promised a new tempest of its own, a threat, or perhaps an answer, lingering in his very being. "Who are you?" Miguel stepped forward, protective instincts flaring. The man stepped into the light, his features sharpening, deep-set eyes, dark hair, and an enigmatic smile that sent chills racing down my spine. "You don't know me, but we are family." And within that moment, cloaked in uncertainty and thunderous emotion, I knew we had stepped unwittingly into a deeper web of secrets, a revelation that could bind us closer, or shatter everything we believed in yet again. The man's words hung in the air like a heavy fog, wrapping around us and muffling the world just beyond the threshold. I could see the flicker of skepticism reflecting in each of my siblings' eyes, a mirror to the swirling disquiet within me. "Family?" I echoed, searching for trust within my swirling emotions. "What do you mean? How can we be family if we've never met you?" His smile faltered for just a moment, revealing an undercurrent of sadness. "My name is Javier. I have long been searching for you, for all of you." He glanced around the room, his gaze lingering on the photograph that still lay on the table. "I see you found what was hidden. It's about time." Lucas's fists clenched. "We don't need any more cryptic statements. We need answers. How do you know us? I can explain everything, but you need to trust me. This is about your mother. She was part of a complex story, one that tethered not just us, but a lineage of secrets that you've been kept from all your lives." Elena pressed her palm to her chest, a flicker of recognition igniting in her eyes. "You knew our mother?" Javier took a step closer, and we instinctively formed a tight circle, protecting one another, even as curiosity drew us in. "Not just knew her, he paused, emotion thick in his voice. "I loved your mother. She was my sister." The room filled with a heavy silence, punctuated only by the crackling sounds of the storm. The words sister and love reverberated against the walls, winding through our minds like serpents. I felt the ground shift beneath my feet as our reality folded into something new and terrifying. Your sister. Martha's voice trembled, disbelief coloring her words. You're saying our mother had a brother we never knew about? That's exactly what I'm saying, he replied quietly. There was a rift, a split in our family that created generations of separation and pain. His eyes went dark as he continued. And it needs to end. You deserve to know the truth of your heritage. Questions tugged at my mind, sharp and insistent. Why didn't she ever speak of you? Why keep this from us? Javier's face tightened, betraying shadowy memories entwined with remorse. She was afraid. Afraid of what the past could bring, afraid of old wounds reopening. But those secrets have festered long enough. It's time for you to understand the legacy you carry. A commotion outside drew our attention, a flurry of lights and the sound of footsteps approaching, distant yet growing closer. The storm continued to rage, almost as if it were protesting the encroaching truths that threatened to spill forth. Stay inside, Miguel warned, his voice taut with urgency. But my instincts pushed me forward, drawn to the window where flickering beams disrupted the darkness. What if it's more family? I murmured, a mix of hope and fear igniting in my chest. Javier seemed to sense the weight of my curiosity. Whatever it is, it may not be safe, he cautioned, but his eyes betrayed a flicker of excitement. But we might not have much time. With a resolute breath, I turned back to him. You say we have a legacy, one that has been buried by fear. So, tell us everything. We need to know what we're dealing with before we decide whether to welcome or to wage war against whoever is out there. Javier nodded, a newfound determination etched across his features. The history of our family is riddled with pain but also with strength. Since the beginnings, our bloodline has been intertwined with a secret society, a legacy of protectors bound to preserve something precious. What do you mean? Lucas interrupted, his brow furrowed. There are forces that are still at play today, Javier continued, an edge in his tone. They won't stop until they have what they desire, and we may be the key. Just then, the front door swung open again, this time more forcefully, as a group of unfamiliar figures stepped inside, shaking off raindrops and glaring at us with intensity. They looked like soldiers, ready for a confrontation, standing in stark contrast to the intimate familial connection we were starting to forge with Javier. Stop right there. One of them shouted, eyes narrowing as they surveyed the room. Javier, I gasped, fear washing over me as the lines on his face deepened in defiance. What are they? They are the ones seeking to erase our past, he spat back, his voice resolute. And they're here for you. The air between us crackled with impending danger, as the storm outside roared like a beast awakened. The emotional journey we had only begun to navigate turned into a wall of uncertainty. The revelations felt like fragments of a shattered mirror, current and dangerous. The sense of belonging, of finding our roots, collided violently with the violent intrusion of conflict. We stood at the precipice of a new reality, knowing that answers, no matter how painful, might be the only key to our survival. And in that very moment, as the world shifted around us, uncertainty wrapped its cold fingers around my heart, locking me into a future that was as deeply personal as it was perilous. I was not prepared for what came next, the onslaught of emotions crashing upon us like the storm raging outside. Time seemed to stand still as we faced off against the intruders, their presence looming ominously in our sanctuary. The truth I had craved, that we all had craved, was now a fragile thread suspended between uncertainty and danger. Javier's eyes met mine, a silent understanding passing between us. Stay together, he urged, his voice firm yet thick with underlying fear. We formed a tighter circle, instinctively stepping closer to one another. Lucas, trembling, clutched my hand as if it were a lifeline, and I could feel the strength of our bond radiating through that simple touch. Who are they? I whispered, my voice struggling to keep its steadiness. I did not want to believe the reality unfolding before us. The one seeking your parents' legacy, Javier replied, his face set like stone. They believe that with you, they can reclaim what was lost. But they don't realize that this legacy isn't about power or control, it's about protection, and it's time we claimed it back. The intruders stepped closer, their eyes scanning the room, evaluating their odds while we drew strength from each other. I faced them, my heart hammering against my chest. This was our home. We were the guardians of our truth, no matter how cloaked in darkness and despair it had become. What do you want? I challenged, my voice gaining volume, fueled by adrenaline and the solidarity of my family beside me. The tallest of the group stepped forward, a hardened expression on his rugged face. We want what belongs to us, what your parents tried to steal from us long ago, he sneered, disdain twisting his features. Power that rightfully belongs to our lineage. You're a mere obstacle to what we will reclaim. Fear snaked through me, but so did something fiercer, defiance. I shifted my stance, holding Lucas tight. We won't let you take it. You have no idea what our family has faced or endured. Perhaps not, but your ignorance won't protect you, he shot back, his voice cold. The tension thickened, it felt as if the air itself shuddered at the portent of conflict brewing just beneath the surface. Enough! Javier roared, his voice bearing affirmations of loyalty and resolve that were felt by all of us. He stepped forward, locking eyes with the leader of the intruders, his voice dropping to an intense whisper. We are stronger than the shadows of the past. Always have been. Your time has run out. The room pulsated with the weight of his declaration, electrifying even the air around us. I watched the intruders shift slightly, uncertainty creeping into their eyes, and for a moment, it felt as if we were on the threshold of victory, and then it happened. A flash of lightning illuminated the room, causing chaos to ensue. In that heartbeat, I felt a well of power surge within me, fueled by the truths we had unlocked together. The bond forged through our shared history breathed life into the hope we so desperately clung to. Lucas, stay behind me, I commanded, a protective instinct propelling me forward. The light flickered again, and I glanced around, gathering all the strength that coursed through our connection. Don't you understand? I shouted, directing my anger towards the intruders. You think you can come here and take what belongs to us? You don't know the first thing about sacrifices, love, or family. That is something you can never steal. As I spoke, I could see the tide of emotions swirling among us: fear, anger, determination. Javier rid himself of his earlier hesitation, pushing onward. We stand on the shoulders of those who fought for us long before these shadows clouded our future. We need to embrace that strength and fight for what is rightfully ours together. The challenge resonated in the air. Lucas's grip tightened around my hand, Martha stepped closer, her stance defiant. Javier stood fierce, embodying every ounce of courage he had long hidden. As one, we faced the intruders, and then, a voice broke through the tension, fragile yet forceful. It was Elena. You can't take what you've never understood, she declared, and a fire lit behind her eyes as she moved beside us. We will never allow you to redefine our narrative. We choose love, we choose a legacy filled with strength, not fear. The leader hesitated, and in that moment, I saw an opening, a sliver of doubt creeping into his dominating facade. Perhaps he had underestimated us. Let us go, Javier proclaimed, breaking the silence as he stepped forward, pressing the advantage. You've caused enough pain, and we won't be mere bystanders to our own fate anymore. We will end this cycle today. The intruders' resolve flickered, they exchanged glances, reassessing us, but the tension hung taut, an unyielding rope stretched to breaking point. It was then I realized, while the storm outside raged, we had emerged from our shadows, reclaiming our identities, knowing now that the power was not just in our blood but in our connection. Together, I reminded them all, breathing deeply, finding solace in the gathering storm. In every way that matters. It's time to fight. With that, we mobilized as one, and as I stood shoulder to shoulder with my family, a single thought cut through the cacophony of fears and doubts, awakening a deep, undeniable connection to one another and the legacy we were reclaiming. What came next would either reinforce our unity or threaten to tear us apart, but either way, we were ready. As the opposing figures advanced, a moment crystallized. The storm outside howled, and with it came the fractured cries of past battles, mingled with our present resolve. The distance between us vanished as we moved in unison, and for the first time in our lives, I understood that the true legacy we carried wasn't merely a hidden treasure of power or darkness. It was the strength of family forged through love and unwavering support, and with a united front, we faced the storm, both inside and out, ready to embrace whatever came next. In that moment, I realized we were finally freed. As the thunder roared and the winds howled, we surged forward together. Fear had no power over a family bound by love, and as our voices joined together, merging strength with every heartbeat, we vowed to reclaim our past and create a future where hope conquered fear, forever, because for the first time, I knew this was only the beginning of rewriting our story. And that story would start with us, together. Family. No more shadows. That we would finally embrace the light.